Hey everyone, Luke here. I just wanted to make a quick video talking about indie game development slash mobile app development and my experience and background in it. Whether it's monetarily viable, whether I think you should get into game development, app development, what do I recommend, etc. So first, a bit of background, what I've done, what I've been doing the past few years. I started my indie game developer journey back in around 2020 working with Unreal Engine, and I was working with an artist, and we had big aspirations for a project in Unreal Engine, which is something I do not recommend for anybody, so I'm gonna try and give you all some advice here and say to start small. Don't do what I did. So we started with Unreal Engine, and we had big plans for kind of a visual novel style game, 3D, stylistic, which is even harder than a photorealistic or like a high-res type realistic art style. If you're going for like a 3D, good lighting, stylistic game, it's actually going to be harder to make it look good than just going with like a high-res photo scan models and such. But yeah, scope creep really got out of control with that one, and the project eventually kind of fizzled out due to multiple reasons. After that, I kind of picked up projects and they all kind of fell through. And scope creep, which is the idea that you don't maintain a consistent vision for what project you're doing, and you keep tacking on features and adding things that you think would be cool without considering how long this is going to take you to create. This is the number one thing that you need to consider when trying to get into independent app development or game development, is being grounded in reality and not getting too ahead of yourself in the brainstorming slash planning phase. I've only really ever released 2 applications because of this issue. One being a stupid little mobile game called Jump Tacky. It was my first foray into this idea that I just need to do something without this constant planning and scope creep issue and consistent adding of these features, so to say. Because before, I sort of felt that I had to make something bigger, something like better than all these other small little first apps. I didn't like the idea that these people were pushing. I'm sure you've heard this before, where YouTubers say, start small, don't get too ahead of yourself, especially with games. Your first game is always going to suck. That is 100% true. Don't do what I did and think you can get away from that idea. Experience is the only true source of knowledge. You can't just research your way enough to making your dream game right off the bat. You gotta really get your hands dirty with this kind of thing. This game, Jump Tacky, it was really a quick project, and I told myself that I was gonna see it to completion. I wasn't gonna stop with this project. I wasn't gonna project hop until it was on Google Play. And I did, and it ended up being one of the most fun little projects that I've ever done. So, what do I recommend on this game development side if you're looking to get into indie game development? I recommend just starting small, seeing the project to absolute completion. I also recommend not starting with anything multiplayer, because networking can make things horrifically more complex. Yeah, 2D is good. I'd recommend starting with 2D. And another huge issue, which I ran into a lot with indie game development, was after our first failed project with Unreal Engine I was talking about before, I realized what a massive pain it is to create art assets. If you want to create art assets, you really have two options for your game, or maybe three. You can buy the assets and have a completely inconsistent art style that will end up looking really bad, and you're pretty much going to regret it, guaranteed. Second option is to split the workload with someone else and potentially split any future profits as well. So you could have a artist you work with, for example. You may even have to pay them if they're not willing to accept like future equity, I guess. Number three would be learning how to create the art style you want on your own. Now, a lot of people recommend you do this with pixel art, and people may think, oh, it's just pixel art, it's easy, but no, it's much more difficult than you think, especially pixel art animation. You have to meticulously draw and place every single pixel of every single frame of every single character, asset, background, if you have an animated background, etc. This can be a gigantic waste of time, depending on how you see it, and you may just want to like build your game and not spend hours upon hours, hundreds if not 1,000 hours learning how to make sufficient art. So what do I recommend on this front? I recommend going with around 16-bit pixel art. Very simple assets, not too many frames in your animation. And when you're doing pixel art in this low res kind of pixel art, you can get away with using assets online as well. You can even get some pixel art assets and retweak their color palette to match yours. This is a great way to cut down on your asset creation time. Now, this asset creation issue is why I primarily recommend indie developers don't jump into game development, honestly. Especially if you are a programmer or just a coder and you want to make your own games by yourself, I would recommend, if you can, kind of lean towards the app development side of things and not the game development, because you're going to find that you can create things so much quicker when you don't have to worry about creating these assets and maintaining a consistent art style, and when you can just use a UI library that already has a consistent theme, that's already going to have everything you could possibly need, and you won't have to compete in this gigantic game development market. The success rate of games on these big storefronts like Google Play is magnitudes lower than an app with real problem-solving capabilities in someone's everyday life. Rather than just an entertainment platform that you're sort of gambling that somebody is going to enjoy, you honestly should be focusing on making an app. Something like an app I made called MotoRoute. Now, MotoRoute is an app that I started making around a year ago after a conversation me and my late uncle had about how every single app on the market was kind of just bad for motorcycle route planning and navigation. So something you really want to focus on is identifying a problem that people have, or a business has, even better, and fixing that problem with an app. That would be my number one advice if you want to try and make it as an app developer. I'm not saying that I am a successful app developer. I'm just saying these are the things that has worked for me and what I feel I have created the most value from. You need to be realistic, create things that you know people will enjoy or need in their lives. This is the reality that a lot of people don't talk about when they say they want to become a game developer, indie game developer, or be an independent app developer or something. It takes a lot to be monetarily viable in this kind of field, and you need to stack all the cards you can in your favor. It's not something that's going to be immediately monetarily viable, and I do not recommend quitting your job pursuing one of these app ideas that you have. Thanks for listening to my thoughts and opinions on independent game development and app development. Let me know if you want to hear more commentary style freeform videos like this, and feel free to check out my app that I was referring to, MotoRoute. It's available on the App Store and Google Play. Thanks for listening.